I said we'd be back with password, and here we are. It's Dean's day 11 this time. So, there's no point doing any more of an introduction. Let's pick things up where we left last time. And that's with Dave going to sleep. I remember tossing and turning in my sleep, restless. Dave, come on, buddy, time to get up. The corners of my mouth twitched upwards at the familiar voice, but it soon faded, brow furrowed. 5 more minutes, Dad. Oh, are you that tired? You slept long enough, buddy, come on. My eyes adjusted to see Dad sitting on the bed, a hand on my shoulder from where he gently nudged me awake. I still felt sluggish. What I could see was clear. There's my boy. Dad? What? Where? I had to have been dreaming again, right? This was a dream much like the last time, but why? Why now? My heart ached seeing him after what had happened with Sal and Dean. Are you sick, son? You're looking a little under the weather. No, I'm fine. I think I just... What? You sure? I don't mind calling in sick myself if you want me around. Or I could shoot Tyson a message, see if I'll keep you company again. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. I had to be dreaming. I went to pull out my fur to see if that'd wake me up. My own arm slipped out of my grasp. Dad, why are you here? Well, that's not very nice, son. I'll always be with you. It's just the job of being a dad. You'll be with me always. Well, that's right. Come on downstairs, it's almost time to get going. He got up and left the room before I could get a word in. That was normal. Maybe not with how he seemed to slide out of the room, but he did move fast when he was excited. Where were we going? Why? The next thing I knew, I was downstairs looking at the living room. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but I could hear Mom and Dad yelling. Dad stomped past me, stopping at the door. He just looked at me quietly for a moment before he sighed out. He went to say something, but was garbled like I couldn't understand him. He went to speak again, much to the same result. I shook my head, confused, but he seemed to be laughing. I took a couple of steps towards him, reaching out my hand, but... Then he was gone. As the bedroom came back into view, I looked around to take stock of where I was. Hammond Manor, a bed that I was for the most part slowly becoming used to. In a room where I was by myself. I looked to the empty space next to me, half missing Dean's company. My mind began to wander as I stared at the ceiling. I didn't normally have dreams like this, more so about Dad. Was it just getting to the point pushing it down wasn't working? With a sigh, I got up, putting on some clothes and wondering about Dean. Was he mad about last night? What about Sal? Did I miss being close to him? Was I just hoping for more, well, sex? By the time I was decent and made my way downstairs, I looked out to the foyer. The house was quiet. For how big it was, I expected there'd be some sort of sound echoing, but the soundproofing probably took care of that. Taking a seat on the stairs, I cradled my head in my hands, rocking back and forth slowly. What do I do? I repeated the question as a whisper to no one in particular, not even to myself as I tried to figure out what the next plan was. I'd been successful, right? See what I had in the vault? Even at the cost of making Sal sad. Was that worth it? This sucks. I groaned out, slumping back against the stairs for I caught movement nearby. Huh? Must you be so loud in the morning? I wasn't loud, I was just... The words were already out of my mouth before I realised the irony and saw Oswin crack a smile. Why aren't you in your... hiding? I'm on my way to bed. Wandering my own house is somewhat normal, given I live here, no? But staying hidden and... believe me, I'm aware. But at the same time, consider that I would know how best to move around my house, outside of perhaps Benson. So you're going to disappear now? Soon. Are you still interested in another meeting tonight? If you've changed your mind, then I suppose that's that. No. No, I'm still interested. Oh, good, because I have questions for you after last night. You put on quite a show. You're watching. The equivalent to a morning television programme, if anything, but something I've been pondering while you've been asleep, no doubt. I scrunched up my nose at him, feeling bitter that I was just a form of entertainment for him. Am I funny to you? Funny? No. Fascinating? Absolutely. Granted, your mental state is something I'm concerned about. Whatever effect the vault is having on you is something that could do some lasting damage. I don't have a choice if keeping my friends alive. Quite. Which is why it's imperative I monitor you when I can to make sure you don't degrade further. Either way, it's something to address tonight. I'll meet you in the library at 11 p.m. I'll take you to the lab from there. I can't just meet you at the lab. And not this time, not without me showing you the way first. That in of itself is a test. I'm curious to know how you'll respond. I wasn't convinced, and I must have shown in my face. Don't worry about it, Dave. I shall see you tonight. I didn't think to follow him, but I watched as he headed towards the basement. I could only assume that he had another secret passage down there or had something else planned. Either way, the others were likely to start showing up soon. With the thoughts of the others soon joining me, I headed into the dining room in a daze. Coffee? Breakfast? I was just so tired. Then into the kitchen. I wonder if I should just head back to bed or if I should just stay here. It wasn't if it was any different to any other morning at home. Especially with Dad gone. A hand on my shoulder made me jump and I spun to look at who had touched me as they pulled their hand away. Oh, it's just you. Did I scare you? Heaven forbid if I did anything of the sort. No, just... it's fine, really. I didn't even smile. If I wanted to, I had a reflex. It just didn't happen. Well, what's troubling you, my boy? You look worse for wear, and no wonder given the hour. I just don't know anymore. All this stuff is just getting to me. I pulled my gaze away to stare at the coffee pot, hoping it'd finish brewing faster. It's been getting to me for a bit now, but no one understands. Right. As far as I know, this is just a thing in my head. After all, what would you do if your friend told you were going to die out of nowhere? He didn't respond, so I continued. Or if you had to accuse one of your friends for murdering someone else. What do I do? There's nothing you can do, my boy. For one reason or another, you've made this decision and no one holding you to it is yourself. What if someone dies? Everyone dies, be it by natural causes or by an assailant in the night. Take it from someone with first-hand experience in such matters, Dave. That's meant to help anyone. That's not going to help me knowing everyone's just going to die. Then perhaps, Master Dave, you should stop believing you have absolute control over everyone's life. If it is their time, it is simply their time. I clenched my jaw, then my fists. Then the next thing I knew, I was throwing a fist at Benson. Maybe it was something rubbing off on me from Tyson. Maybe just an act of defiance after what Benson had said. But his moves were calm and precise, stepping around my arm and grabbing my wrist and twisting it tightly, making me yelp. Now you listen here, my boy. His grip tightened and I started to whine as he forced me to my knees, kicking lightly behind my knee. It hurts, stop! Oh, does it? Then perhaps you should think twice about trying to inflict pain on others, my boy. I yelped as he clenched tighter, his grip on was like a vice. Then he let go, and the moment he did I cradled my arm, whimpering. If you're that keen on fighting for control, then be ready for someone or something to fight back. Fighting for what's right is not necessarily the easiest road. It will hurt, Dave. He stepped away and I got up, shaky. But then, yes, they'll die, I know. Take what I said as a precautionary tale then. Eventually something will break, my boy. At the rate you're going, it could just be you. He moved on to another part of the kitchen and my gaze went to the floor. I closed my eyes and just stood there, trying to block out my own thoughts. Just give up, Dave. Let whatever happens, happen. Let them die. The next thing I knew, I was sitting at the table being lightly shaken by Tyson. What are you doing? I looked between him and Orlando, then a mug of coffee in front of me. Dave, you look out of it. Well, so long as you're okay, I guess I'll go make breakfast. I looked up to watch Orlando wander into the kitchen. I watched as Ty took my mug away. This is fucking ice cold. You've been nursing this for how long? Soon he too left, grumbling as he went towards the kitchen. I looked up as Dean and Sal wandered into the dining room. They both looked tired, and I can only imagine why. Good morning, Dave. Sal mumbled something before sitting down at the table. Dean glanced at him, nodding before sitting down next to me. How are you doing, handsome? Sleep all right? No. I'm sorry to hear that. What about you? He looked me over carefully, saying nothing. The longer he stayed quiet, the more it sank in. You haven't slept? Well, there are certain things that are more important, namely taking care of someone dear to me, and that means Sal. I'm sorry, I didn't. Much like the night before, Dean held up a hand and shook his head. Well, it's fine, Dave. We talked it out, and, well, for better or worse, what's done is done. I'm tired, though, but that's fixable. Well, as for Sal, he'll just need some cheering up. I'm on top of that, too. Don't worry. Can I help? Well, not this time. If that changes, though, I'll let you know. Dean went to join Sal nearby, the pair of them talking quietly between themselves. Then Roswell and Hoss showed up, surprisingly a lot more perky than the rest of us. Good morning, guys. Yeah, good morning. I drummed my fingers on the table, missing the mug of coffee I'd made myself despite letting it go cold. Well, what's on your mind, Dave? A lot. Okay, but anything more specific than that? We can't help unless you say something. I went to say something, but instead just shook my head, keeping my gaze on the table. Hoss and Roswell took seats next to each other and started talking in hushed tones about me. Specifics I couldn't quite make out, but they were planning something. I just had to make it through the day, to tonight. Oswald would tell me some more things, and knowledge was power, right? He said as much when I ran into him earlier. Or maybe not that specifically, if he had anything to help me not break as Benson put it. I was willing to listen. Orlando emerged from the kitchen with a bunch of toast, and Ty stopped by with a fresh mug of coffee for me. He lazily put it in front of me, its contents precariously sloshing about and threatening to spill. Before I could say anything, he was already moving down the table. They moved off, and the rest of breakfast was a blur. Let go, Dave. It's all right. Let them die. Earth to Dave. Huh? I came to with Hoss snapping his fingers in front of my face. My coffee was half gone from a cursory glance, and still kind of warm, so I must not have zoned out for too long. He's been talking to you for a couple of minutes, Dave. Sorry, I just, Hoss and Dean shot each other a glance, worried. I could tell they were, but I didn't know what to tell them. After all, what could you say when the voice in your head, the voice of what sounded like your dad, was telling you to let your friends die? Mind if I take over, Hoss? Take over? Well, I mean, I'm sure, I guess. I have to weather the corral, so it's no problem to me if I want to give it a shot. Hoss patted me quickly on the shoulder before rushing out of the dining room. It was only then I realised everyone else had up and left already. I scowled at no one in particular, wondering how they could have all just left without checking up on me. Or maybe they were just giving me space. Can I ask you something? What? Dean took a seat next to me and placed a hand on my shoulder. Well, things aren't getting much better for you, are they? I shook my head quickly, leaving my answer at that. Well, Sal and I, we're going to hang by the pool today. Sal is going to distract himself by giving Orlando a swimming lesson, and I was going to relax in the hot tub. Okay. Dave, I want you to join us. Huh? Why? Well, he scratched his chin, thinking things over. Well, after last night, I feel like maybe you could do with some calming down at least for a little bit. At least that's what I've come to know about you and how you hold on to things. He sighed, rubbing his face and keeping his voice low. It takes one to know one, after all. What's that? I'll tell you later, maybe. Just say you'll join us? He got up, pushing his chair in and offering out a hand for me to take. I looked at it gingerly before forcing myself to smile and taking it so he could help me up. We should probably hurry up. The other two left a while ago, so go get changed and we can head on down. Aren't you getting changed? Oh, I will, but it won't take me long to change given I'm just going to be sitting in the hot tub. Dean and I headed upstairs and broke off to change in our own rooms before meeting back in the foyer to head out to the pool. When we got to the pool, Dean opened the gate for me, and I wandered on in, seeing Sal standing awkwardly off to the side, fidgeting. You're here? Of course. But, where's Orlando? I looked around, listening out for Orlando if he was around. Taking a look at Sal, though, hinted where Orlando was just from how often his stealing looks over at the change rooms. I'm guessing the change room? He's been in there for a while. For someone that was eager for a lesson, his attitude sure to change when it came to actually getting ready for it. Or should we give him a push? Maybe not into the pool, but that's one way to get him in there. Not helpful, Dean. I remember what it's like to be scared of the water. I tilted my head at Sal, scratching my chin. For someone that seemed to love being at the pool, I wondered what had really made him scared of the water. Looking to Dean, I sighed out, shaking my head. I'll go see what's keeping him. Well, alright. I'll start up the hot tub then. If anyone wants to join me, they're welcome. Lesson first, then hot tub. At least for Orlando. Works for me. Normally I'd expect an invitation to be thrown my way from Dean, but maybe from last night he'd lost interest? I watched him wander over the hot tub, less for spring in his step, but that same slightly rocking shift in his weight, as each heavy foot landed one after the other on his way over. Sal cleared his throat, bringing me to my senses, and the pair of us wandered over to the change rooms. Orlando, you still changing? There was a surprised gasp coming from over the partition, followed quickly by a very flustered voice that was unmistakably Orlando's. I'll be out soon. You've been in there for ages, Orlando. I'm still getting this stuff on. It's difficult. Stuff? If you need help, I can come in and give you a hand. No, it's fine. I've got it. Orlando, you don't need anything other than the swimming trunks I gave you. What could you possibly be putting on? Things. Sal, should we go in? If you're not out here in 30 seconds, I'm dragging you out myself, Orlando. That's a bit much, isn't it? Between how long it took for you to get change and join us, Orlando should have been done a long time ago. I suppose that makes sense. There was a groan, followed by a resigned sigh, for Orlando started shuffling around. Fine, I'm coming out. Sal and I looked at one another before looking back to Orlando. The hell are you wearing? Take that off. No, I need this. For what? You're just going into the pool. How are you expecting to learn to swim with a life jacket on? Let alone that life preserver around your tail. I looked around Orlando to see the ring shoved over his tail, curled nervously around his leg. You weren't this bad at the beach, Orlando. I'll have you know that I stick to the rock pools for a reason. I don't need anything for those. But you are planning on swimming, right? Orlando's eyes went to the water and he tensed up, his own reflection staring back at him. Shaking his head, Sal took Orlando by the hand and we started to wander over the more shallow side of the pool. As we stood by the shallow end, I looked down into the water, much in the same way Orlando was. I looked alright, or at least I seemed to like how I looked. Not too skinny, not as round as the others, but I was fluffy and liked it that way. My mind wandered what it'd be like with it all sticking to my body when wet and how out of shape I might look. I could always just play it off as my fur sticking to my body, strangely though. Okay, so I just get into the water, right? Yes. It's not too deep, is it? This is the shallow end, so no. And it's not too cold, though. What if it's too cold? Looking at where Dean had ended up, he was lounging in the hot tub, resting his chin on his arms as he watched us try to get Orlando into the pool. There was no way he was worried about the temperature of the water. The longer I watched, the more I noticed the amused smile on Dean's face. be fine, Orlando. Just get in. Okay, but what about if it's really cold and the sudden change in temperature makes me go into shock and... I watched Sal move as Orlando freaked out, placing a single finger between his shoulders and applying enough pressure Orlando had to take a step forward. Hey, I'm going, alright? It'll be fine. Just go in. Maybe if Dave goes in first? I shrugged and slipped into the pool, shuddering at the change of temperature briefly. See, even Dave noticed a temperature change. So help me, I'll pick you up and throw you in myself, Orlando. You wouldn't dare. The moment Orlando turned to confront Sal, he cowered, seeing his glare. So much so that when he took a step back, it was right on the edge of the pool. Flailing about, he reached out, narrowly missing Sal and landing with a large splash next to me. Oh God, I'm gonna die, this is it. Sal looked guilty, but slid into the pool right after, standing next to Orlando as he flailed in the water. Orlando, calm down. Dave, do something, I haven't learned to swim yet. He must have caught both of us standing either side of him as he stopped thrashing, kept afloat by his life jacket and sheepishly stayed on his back. Are you going to stand up now? Let me die of embarrassment first. I smiled weakly, thinking back to the voices in my head earlier. After a minute of letting Orlando groan to himself, he stood up next to Sal and I, splashing about in the water. Okay, this isn't so bad, I suppose. What were you expecting, though? I don't know, maybe there'd be more... something. And less of... something else. That's not a lot to go off of. And maybe something like a bath, but less bubbles. Well, I guess it's something like that, but... I looked around the pool, trying to place what else was missing. Also less hot. It's a heated pool, but... Orlando, look, if you don't want to learn to swim, I'm not forcing you. I just assumed you still wanted the lesson. I do, I really do. While they discussed how the lesson was going to go, I paddled over the side of the pool closest to the hot tub to see how Dean was doing. He was sitting just how I'd seen him moments ago, chin resting on his folded arms over the side of the tub. As I got closer though, it seemed he was asleep. I wondered if it was safe, but as I inched closer he opened his eyes slowly to look at me. The lesson going well? No sooner he'd finished asking his question, he yawned, rubbing his face. Haven't started yet, I think. How are you doing? Dean's eyes were unfocused, but he seemed thoughtful enough. Oh, tired, but I'm working through it. I whined, shifting uncomfortably. He watched me with a slight smile, almost amused at me fidgeting in the water. Well, I'm glad you came out with us today. Really? Oh, yeah. Once again he yawned, rubbing his face. Just remember to relax a little. Take it easy today. Hey Dave, come over here. Oh, go on. They sound like they need you. I shot a look over to Sal and Orlando, the pair of them seeming ready to start his lesson, although I wondered if Dean would be alright by himself. Well, what's wrong? We'll stay with Dean today. I just thought that maybe I'd stay here with you. Really now? Well, not if you don't want me to, I don't know. Dean chuckled, shaking his head. We're afraid I might fall asleep again. A little. Isn't that dangerous? Normally, but I'm like this, so if I do fall asleep, I don't just slip under the water. Trust me, I'll be fine. And I'll still be here after, so don't mind me, handsome. He flashed me another smile, and I returned one out of instinct. As I turned away, a thought crossed my mind, though. Something dark, or rather something that caught me off guard. Let whatever happens happen. Let them die. I remember looking back at Dean over my shoulder, staring to the point that he raised his head in concern. Why did Dean invite me out here just to hang out in the hot tub? Did I feel like a burden to him? Someone to just take care of? When I looked back to the others, I was already moving in that direction. I clutched my head as I waded through the pool, eyes shut right up until I bumped into something soft. Hey, Dave? Huh? I looked between the two of them, wondering how long I'd been spacing out. What happened? You just walked right into Orlando. Did you need something, Dave? I shook my head, rubbing my eyes. Grumbling something incoherent, I watched as Sal and Orlando looked at one another, confused. Maybe you should go hang out with Dean. No, I'm fine. I said it without realising, only processing what I'd said once the quiet had settled back in. You don't sound very fine. Are you sure? Nodding, I looked between them, pretending to be eager to start this lesson. Yeah, just looking forward to the lesson. You're not, but... Okay. This is fine. Are you sure, shouldn't we? Sal put a hand on Orlando's shoulder, shaking his head. Whatever he tried to convey, he was able to do without speaking a word and getting Orlando to nod along with it. So, swimming lesson. I guess the first thing to say is that water isn't something to be afraid of. It isn't water I'm scared of, it's more... right. It must have hit a nerve, something they talked about before, but Sal continued on. Once you're comfortable with the water, we can try something really basic. Like floating. Well, not everyone can swim, although for Orlando... What? You'd probably float just fine. Are you calling me fat? I'm calling you... buoyant? I'm not that fat, am I? You could probably diet a little bit. Dave, rude much? He's right, though. You could afford to lose a little weight, but that's not going to stop you from learning to swim. Orlando grumbled, splashing Sal weakly before turning to me. I'm not going to regret asking, am I? Probably not. After a bit more encouragement, Orlando got back in the mood to learn to swim. Sal started him off by paddling around, holding his hands while he floated on his stomach. Once he had kicking down, he moved on to get him to blow bubbles. It seemed to go over well enough, with Sal giving him words of encouragement whenever he seemed to be struggling. Not that his life jacket was helping things, but he insisted it stay on. At one point, I was able to tug the life preserver off his tail and use it to just float around the pool a little, letting my mind wander. Very good. I looked up and saw that Sal was very slowly edging away from Orlando, occasionally letting go of his hands as Orlando was forced to paddle towards him for safety. He probably didn't realise that he was at the deeper end of the pool. While watching the lesson, I'd found myself gravitate more towards a hot tub, and in turn, Dean. Something about being near him made me feel nicer. But there was still a level of guilt there, given how I was the reason he'd not had any sleep the night before. The rest of the guilt was how we'd crossed a line in bed, and it was one I wanted to cross again, over and over. Almost to the point that I've got anything specific to Dean about the experience, and just that I wanted that feeling again. I sighed out and tried to clear my head. I didn't need to feel guilty because I'd done the right thing, right? But why wasn't that making me feel better? For all the people currently at the pool, I'd caused two of them to not have any sleep. If I expressed anything heavy on Orlando, he'd likely lose sleep trying to figure out how to make me feel better. I let the life preserver float away as I dipped under the water, clutching my head after a deep breath. Let whatever happens happen. In a flash, I was dragged back out, gasping for air, while Sal had me by the arm. Our eyes met, and I looked past him to Orlando, who was now using the life preserver himself, and then to Dean, who had sat up looking just as concerned as the other two. What happened? Nothing, I just zoned out, I guess. Sal sighed, letting go of me carefully. Okay, that's fine. He looked shaken, rattled as if he'd assumed the worst, but said nothing, instead swimming over to the part of the pool closest to Dean. They had a hushed conversation among themselves while Orlando made his way back over, haphazardly paddling towards me while holding tight to his flotation device. He didn't say anything, reaching out for me momentarily before going back to clutching onto the flotation ring the moment he started to wobble. I'm okay, Orlando. No, you're not. You're really not okay. I grumbled, jaw clenched, and I looked away from him. Okay, well, the lesson went good, but I don't think I really get it. I can float, so I guess that's better than nothing. So it's over now? He flashed me a quick smile while looking over to the other two. I think I want to keep trying things out around the pool. At least for a little bit longer. We have some amount of time left before lunch anyway. Orlando paddled over to Sal, using the side of the pool as a guide, while I stayed in place. I was tired, upset for reasons I couldn't quite place. I was starting to get hungry anyway. It was as good a time as any to call it quits there, and decided that maybe it's time to get out of the pool and head back inside. I called to the others I was heading in for lunch, and shy of Orlando's reluctance, we all agreed it'd be best to head in for a break, without realising we'd been out here for hours. When I got back to my room, I was mostly dry, but needing a shower and to change back into proper clothes. It didn't take long, but I felt better, if only a little. My mind lingered on Dean, on upsetting him. He was tired, so maybe he's going to spend the rest of the day in bed, napping. I wondered if I could make it up to him somehow. Before I knew it, I was heading downstairs, passing Roswell, Hoss and Tyson as they headed back upstairs. I had a plan, something I was sure Dean might like. He liked the outdoors, food and spending time together, so what better than a picnic? Throwing things haphazardly into a wicker basket that I found in the kitchen, I tried to put things that might be good to eat outdoors. Sandwiches, some cookies. I grabbed some chocolate from the refrigerator, along with a couple of pieces of fruit, and I was ready to go. Basket in hand, I scurried out of the kitchen and down the corridor that took me right to the foyer. No sooner than I'd arrived, I saw Dean descending the stairs, looking very tired and seemingly following the others into the dining room. Dean! Oh, what's wrong? He looked down at the basket in my hand, tilting his head. I figured we could have lunch together, like a picnic, or... He frowned slightly, the realization hitting me eventually. Wait, what? A picnic? Yeah, sorry, is that not good, or... Dean wandered forward and carefully wrapped his arms around my shoulders, planting a kiss softly on my forehead. No, a picnic sounds great. Otherwise I would just grabbed a sandwich and had another nap in my room. Great, I furrowed my brow, unsure of exactly what to do next. What's wrong? I didn't exactly plan beyond this, so where would you like to eat? He seemed thoughtful for a few moments, scratching his chin before nodding slowly. How about a nice spot in the woods, maybe under a tree or somewhere nice and private? My cheeks flushed and found myself grinning to myself, liking the idea. With a quick nod, he gestured for me to follow him out to the back door. Much like last time, Dean led the way into the trees and I followed on close behind him with the basket. Before long, we stopped in a small clearing, the back of the mansion barely visible through the trees. Now then. He dropped himself at the base of the tree, sighing out and gesturing for me to sit down beside him. I did and sat cross-legged with the basket in front of me. Why did you get the idea for this? I didn't think I'd be having a picnic today. Oh, only when we came inside. You work fast. Oh, it just sort of came to me. Well, that works for me. Nice enough way to spend time with my favourite hyena. He leaned forward and checked what was in the basket, sitting back with a sandwich and flashing me a quick smile. You sure this is fine? Or why wouldn't it be? I don't know. I guess part of it was me wondering just how this morning went. At the pool. Right, with you just in the hot tub and... I whined softly, fidgeting as I retrieved a sandwich myself. I guess I still feel bad about last night and felt that maybe he thought I was a bother? Dean sighed, scratching his head before taking a bite out of his sandwich. While he chewed, he left the question unanswered, making me all the more nervous that what I thought was true. You're not a bother, but I am very tired. You sure? Well, I'm not going to lie that I was fine with you dumping that on Sal last night. You could have picked a better time or approached it differently. Rich coming from me, I know. What did you do? Oh, nothing. I know that sometimes I say things without thinking. I never mean bad by it, but that doesn't mean you can't complain if someone takes offence. That's why I'm certain that when you came out with what you did, you meant well, so that's that. Nothing that can't be fixed. He placed a hand on my shoulder, looking me over. Is that all that's wrong? Thinking that I was unhappy with you? I sighed, shaking my head and looking back into the basket to keep my attention elsewhere. It's a lot of things, but I guess I'll just deal with it. Hey now, that's not very fair. If something's wrong, you can talk to me. Communication is important, you know. I guess it's just... All the stuff is getting to me. Everything with the vault, everything with trying to make sure people get along. Well, last I heard, things were going well on that front, though. Tyson's a lot calmer than I'd heard. Roswell apologising. Even Sal and Orlando started to move past what had happened. And Hoss? Well, honestly, I don't know about him. But he seems to be fighting the same fight you are with the others, trying to keep everyone happy and getting along. So you aren't alone, I think. Why does it feel so hard? Maybe you're just forcing it. Shouldn't I be? They're my friends, so of course I want them to get along and have a good time. Doesn't sound like you're having a good time trying to force it. Wouldn't make them have a bad time knowing their friend is also having a bad time on vacation. But what should I do? Or maybe just let things happen? Relax a little. Dean scoffed the rest of his sandwich and pulled out another, looking around the trees while his last statement sank in. Hey, whatever happens, happen. Let them die. The thought churned in my stomach and I groaned, coming back as Dean kneaded my shoulder. Are you okay? No. Was it something you ate? I shook my head, sighing out and trying to level my breathing. What else has got you down? You can tell me anything. Ask me anything too. Steeling myself, I looked at Dean carefully. I didn't know how best to start this off, shy of just going for it. Are we dating? What? I mean, we did the thing the other night. I want to do that more, but it's been so long since we said we'd start dating, but I don't know. I watched as Dean stammered, trying to figure out what to say. Eventually, I just continued. We've been out on a few dates, but you keep insisting they aren't, and so, I don't know. What exactly are we? Like, no, this is a date, right? Is it? Well, I thought it'd count. I wouldn't say this counts. This is just hanging out with a friend. But what if I wanted it to count as a date? The question lingered in the air for a bit before Dean sighed out, shaking his head. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. I guess my thoughts on that is just different. A date to me is something flashy, going out somewhere fancy with flowers or to a movie. Is that why we've never gone? Not really. There's just some other things that, well... Dean slumped back against the tree, staring up at the leaves above. Maybe I was only noticing now just how tired he was, but it looked like he was on the verge of crying. I guess I've been kind of bad at that, huh? You mostly just made me confused. I've never really dated anyone, I think, or know what it's like to be in a relationship, so I've just been trying to figure it out as I go. Honestly, I just expected that you knew what you were doing and was just following your example. Oh. He left the comment there, and the next thing I knew, he was rubbing his eyes on the back of his arms. What's wrong? Nothing, just... Thinking about it, I'm just making the same mistakes again without realising it. Mistakes? You mean you don't want to be dating, or...? No, not that. Don't doubt for a second I'm not interested, but... Well, now's as good a time as any to tell you about my last relationship. Did it go badly? Do you remember how I told you about someone special to me that went through... survived through... He was choking on his words, something replaying in his head that seemed to be distracting him. He was my first boyfriend. Oh. Things started to sink in, now realising how difficult this must be for Dean to talk about. Curiosity got the better of me to find out what exactly had happened, so I let him continue. Not that I thought about it that way for a long time, and it took right up until something happened that I realised maybe there was more of an expectation from me. We were friends. Started out in a robotics class that I picked up because there weren't any better options when we had to choose electives in high school. You learned how to work with robots? Not really. Couldn't figure out the part that made it go, or I could put the blocks and the gears together. Only reason I passed is because he was there, honestly. Oh, so you knew each other because you were in the same class? Well, that's just it. It wasn't for him sticking around during a free period one day and sitting in on the class, we might never have met. He handled the brains, I handled the mindless busy work, and it kind of just worked out. After that, we just started to hang out after school, wander up the street and grab food and head back to mine to watch movies. Maybe that's why I'm so reluctant to go to the movies. It feels personal. What about movie night? All of us, well, except for Oswald, were there. Well, that's just it. If it's a whole bunch of people watching a movie, I'm fine. Last time we went to a movie, I had to ask Sal to drag Orlando along just so there were the three of us. Did that most days of the week for half a year, occasionally sleeping over at each other's houses too. So far this seems fine. Well, if things had stayed that way, I probably never would have known. I know I'm not the brightest. Then what changed? So far this just sounds like how Orlando and I hang out after school. Well, for vacation we're going to head up into the mountains, spend some time visiting Grandpa. I figured I'd invite him along for the trip. Didn't say yes right away, but eventually asked if he could still go, and we did. It was great, honestly. Homebrewed cider, wood fire to keep us warm, hikes, and just taking in nature. I just didn't expect him to break down and kiss me right after admitting that he liked me. He just kissed you, like that. Or just like that. What did you do? How did you respond? I mean, I don't know how I'd handle just being kissed out of nowhere. Well, I kissed him back. I had to think about it, but I kissed him back as best I could. And then? Well, sitting around in our underwear, a little bit of alcohol, good company. I'll let you fill in the gaps. You had sex? Oh, not that night, but it didn't stop us from trying. Young but eager, I guess. Did love experimenting to find what I liked, and he did too. It was great. I don't get it. How does all this lead to him, you know? He rubbed his face, reaching to the basket for a piece of fruit and rolling it in his hand. We had to have a talk about what would happen when we got back to school. We liked each other, but I didn't want to make it a big deal of it, 'cause coming out as liking guys wasn't exactly the safest thing to do. It is now, though, kinda. I mean, there wasn't a big deal when Orlando came out, or when I did. Do you think people will mess with a dragon who can breathe fire? Well, I guess not, but what about me? Who would pick on someone like you? You're kind and cute. But it was likely because you're friends with Orlando. Oh, well, it'd be nice if you could just come out and not have to worry about it. Dean nodded, although stayed quiet. Like, whose business is it if I like guys or girls or both or neither? I started to get fired up, if only a little, but upon seeing Dean's wry smile, I stopped. It'd be nice if it was like that. But it wasn't. He shook his head, taking a bite of the apple he chewed slowly as if delaying explaining further. You could probably guess what happened next. He told people you were dating. No, which... He is very headstrong, if loyal. I said I wasn't ready, and that was likely why I never got brought into things. And then something bad happened. Real bad. Took a couple of days, but they destroyed his locker and everything in it, and he just sort of broke. Or snapped, maybe. He didn't fight them, did he? No, although he could have. He was small, but he's ready to throw down if needed. Not that it ever did. Well, that's good. Sorry, I'll stop talking. That's alright. I've mostly been putting off the bad bit by thinking about the good times. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. I think I get it. It's important to me that you know. I share what happened. Okay, if you're sure. With a deep breath, Dean closed his eyes as he spoke next. His voice was low, barely a whisper. When it all got too much, he came to find me. I was playing basketball with some of the guys at the time. His voice cracked, the apple in his hand slowly becoming crushed as his grip tightened. And then, when he got there, the guys turned on him, mocking him for liking guys, calling him a freak among other things. I placed my hand in his and he took it tightly, whining out the next few words as he continued. They asked me if I was friends with a faggot, and when I said no, it all just... He trailed off, fighting back more tears from running down his cheeks. I betrayed him when I said no. I didn't think they'd beat him within an inch of his life. They didn't. By the time I could move my body, he was on the ground bleeding and... Well, it's a miracle that he pulled through. And that's... Oh, that's it. That's it. When I went to help him, he pushed me away. Said that he loved me and stumbled on home. He loved you even after that? No. He said, I loved you before wandering off, past tense. Which, starting from then, I guess I started having my sleeping problems. I never saw him again against that one time he appeared at graduation. Well, saw him once, but he disappeared real quick the moment I appeared. Maybe he was scared or sad. I doubt I'll ever know. Dean, I'm sorry. Oh, don't be. It's just a reminder that I need to be better next time. You want to know why I ask if you're going alright with anything I do? Well, that's why. I don't think that's bad. Like, you haven't done wrong by me yet? Well, I don't plan to, Dave. Not if I can avoid it. Is there anything I can do or say to make things better? Anything I should be doing to make you happier? You do plenty for me so far, but I feel... At least now kinda... I don't know. Inadequate? I guess a little. I haven't done much with other guys, and you've already done a bunch of stuff for me, so... You're doing fine, Dave. Don't worry about it. Just know that at some point I'll take you out somewhere nice for dinner, and... Well, I guess it'll be official. That we'd be boyfriends. Well, I was going to say dating, but... I guess so. Going out for dinner seems nice. This works for me too. Spending time together is just... nice, right? Oh, true. Does this mean you're looking at this being a date, then? You don't sound so happy about it. Oh, sorry. I've just got everything going through my mind still. Your ex-boyfriend? Right. You're sure this is fine for a date, though? I mean, I don't know any better, but this is nice. Well, you deserve better than this. Trust me, when we get back home, I'll take you somewhere nice. I whine, not like an idea that I need to wait until we left the mansion for us to be considered dating. God, what am I saying? If you like this, then it counts, especially after the effort you went through to put it together. What I mean is, would you like to be dating now? It doesn't just make us boyfriends. Well, normally dating is just getting to know the other person before you commit to it, so not really. Oh. Sorry, this isn't the conversation I thought we'd be having today. No, it's my fault. I should have known better. Of what it's worth, it was nice having a picnic, but... Well, I was hoping the first proper date we'd have would be a little more... worthy. I felt hurt and hugged my knees, sighing out as I closed my eyes. Worthy of you, I mean. God, I swear I wasn't this bad around Rami. Huh? Oh, Dave, thanks for the picnic, but I think maybe I've hit my limit for today. Oh. Well, don't get me wrong, it was sweet and a nice surprise. Well, after spilling anything about my ex to you, I'm just feeling very... well, vulnerable. He got up yawning and rubbing his eyes. Flashing me a quick, if weak smile, he moved to wave gently. I quickly stood to my feet and gave him a hug, hoping it'd at least help, but there was a delay before he hugged me back. Sorry to ask this, Dave, but I think I'm going to need some alone time. I know I said that before communication was important, but this is something I don't want to talk about for a bit. We could just hang out instead. We could go do something in the greenhouse or hang out in the hot tub, or... The look he gave me was stern but distant, making me trail off and fall quiet. He'd said he wanted to spend time alone, and he was trying to be nice by not saying it again. Okay. Just give up, Dave. Let whatever happens, happen. He patted me on the shoulder, nodding to himself before wandering off between the trees towards the manor. As I watched him go, I stood there in a daze, feeling as though the picnic idea didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. While I'd learned more about Dean and got reassurance he didn't think I was a bother, if anything I felt lonelier despite spending time together. Lost in my thoughts, the only thing that roused me was the sound of a twig snapping somewhere in the distance. Then, as I spun around to see what it could have been, the unmistakable shape of something white disappeared as quickly as I'd noticed it. Calling out to the woods expecting a reply, my eyes scanned the trees waiting for whatever it was to show again. After a few minutes it seemed as though I was alone again. Picking up the basket I hurried along towards the mansion, suddenly not feeling so comfortable out here by myself, even being so close to the house. As I made my way back inside I wondered if I was doing the right thing or just making things worse. Either way, with my morale shot I headed upstairs. By the time I made it back to my bedroom, I was exhausted and not hungry. Looking at the time, chances are I'd be called down for dinner, but I didn't want to go. At some point Orlando came in to check on me and mentioned I should eat something, but left when I said I wanted to be alone. He lingered, but ultimately left quietly. Not that I felt up for talking anyway. And originally this afternoon I continued recording past you. We redid the whole scene with Oswin with a slightly different choice at one point, just so you could see something different slightly from the previous Tyson video. For some unknown reason, OBS decided to suddenly stop recording my audio. Just during that scene with Dean, we just fortunately passed the difficult to read part. So I've just realised that's when I was editing, so I've had to set things up again and re-record the past few minutes. Yeah, so because of that I'm not actually going to re-record the whole 20 more minutes or so with Oswin. We'll pick that one up so you can see Dave's other choice I gave him in Roswell's route. OBS, I tell you, sometimes it's great, most of the time it's great, sometimes it's very, very weird and extremely annoying. I'm not the only one who can say that. Hey, Robot Co-op. Anyway, that's it for now. As I said, the scene continues as before. So we'll pick up Password with Roswell's Day 11 in the next one. And my next video is going to be something different in a couple of days. I hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time, bye for now.